have a quorum, that's great. Seized territory of the Gabrieliano Tongva and Gabrieliano Kiz peoples. So, well, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, and Danny, do you want to lead it?
Please stand. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Secretary, could we please have a roll call?
Yes, and can I remind you to speak into the mic so we can hear you?
Okay.
Commissioner Ng?
Present.
Commissioner Hang?
Here.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Present.
And Vice Chair Eisenberg.
Present.
We have a quorum. Let the record reflect that Chair Bullen is absent today.
Okay, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, item 7A will be continued to our June 6th meeting.
Okay, and could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ng?
Yes.
Commissioner Hang?
Aye.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Eisenberg.
Aye.
And the item is approved.
Okay. Are there any changes to the minutes of April 4th, 2023?
There are no changes.
I have a change.
Okay.
On item 7, it mentions that I said to commit to Aon's business model and health. I believe I said financial health. Or it's referring to financial health.
Okay.
The top of page 4.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ng?
Yes.
Commissioner Hang?
Aye.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Eisenberg.
Aye.
And the item is approved as amended.
Okay. Do we have any public speakers at this time?
No, we do not have any public speakers.
Okay. The time is set aside for members of the public to address the West Hollywood Business License Commission on consent calendar items or items of general interest with the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. This is not the public comment period for any public hearings on the agenda. Public comment for public hearings will occur at the time of hearing. There will also be a general public comment later in the meeting for those who are not heard at this time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes.
We don't have any
hearings
public
tonight?
speakers.
Okay. Okay, item 7A. An application by the,
Item has been moved to June 6th, so we'll go to 7B.
okay. An application for Dobrik's Pizza Sunset LLC for an extended hour business license located at 8363 Sunset Boulevard. I'll now open the public hearing of item 7B. And Secretary, how was this item noticed?
All notices were posted at the city's legally 3 required posting locations and sent to all occupants within the 500-foot radius of the applicant.
Okay. Does any commissioner have any disclosures? Okay. Okay. Is there a staff report?
Yes. Hi, good evening, Commissioner, Business License Commissioners. This is Jessica Benitez, Code Enforcement Supervisor. Also joining me this evening is Vito Adomaitis, our Neighborhood and Business Safety Manager, and a Deputy City Attorney, Grace Yeo. Also, I'll ask for media to share my PowerPoint on the screen, please. And we'll begin in a minute. Thank you. So, good evening. The item before you this evening is the request for an extended hours business license for Dobrik's Pizza, which is located at 8363 Sunset Boulevard. The extended hours that they're requesting is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'd like to mention that the business has obtained all required permits through the Planning Division and Building and Safety Division for the use of the restaurant and also to use the common restroom, which is located at the rear of the property. Dobrik's is located here on the screen, as you can see in the red bubble. That is 8363 Sunset Boulevard. And then the main, let me see if I can move my cursor so that I can show. For whatever reason, it doesn't show on the screen, but that's our main boulevard, which is Sunset Boulevard, and south of that is Fountain Avenue. So as you can see here, Dobrik's is neighbor to other restaurants, hotels, retail stores, and residential homes on the hillside. So if you look on Sunset Boulevard, southwest is the Tower Bar, that is the Sunset Tower Hotel. Just to the east, you have a park. And then the building just right there on Sweetser, that's the old Standard Hotel. If we look on the west of the screen, we have the Andas Hotel, we have the Comedy Store, and south of that we have the Pendry Hotel. Just wanted to make a mention of the layout of the land. Also, within this particular business, the nearest businesses with extended hours business license is the Body Shop, which is located east of the subject location, which is on Sunset Boulevard in Harper. On the screen is identified with a green balloon. And also to the west, we have Pink Dot, and it is to the west of the location. It's right at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and La Cienega. And as I'm heading to the next slide, give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so the next slide shows an aerial view of the business, Dobrik's. As you can see, they are located within one parcel that houses Saddle Ranch, retail stores at the back, and also they have parking location. I have this neon yellow bubble to show the parking location for Dobrik's. One of the things about Dobrik's is they have an outdoor dining area along the Sunset Boulevard, and then they have their parking just west of it. So if you're looking north of this location, just wanted to show this particular area view. Also, one of the next slide will show the street view, as I was showing on the aerial view here. We have the business, we have the outdoor dining, and the parking just west of it. So I'll just go ahead and provide a summary of the business. They began their operations in November of 2022. They have an active business license with no alcohol sales. As mentioned before, the business has an outdoor dining area in the front of the property. Their current hours of operations are Sunday through Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Thursday 11 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Friday, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. So essentially what they're requesting is they're requesting to be open until 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Also, I'd like to make a notation that by right, if the business wanted to, they could operate until 2 o'clock in the morning. The applicant is present as well here, and they can answer any questions as why they want to open until 3 o'clock in the morning. So the item before you tonight is that request to be open until 3 o'clock in the morning. So a couple of things as far as the city. There are 5 different criteria that we need to look at, right, under the West Hollywood Municipal Code Section 5.52.04. And one of them, I'll go over it. They're printed. I'm not going to read through this because I'm just going to recap the staff report. One of the things is that the business has off-street parking. Also, one of the things is parking meters are located along Sunset Boulevard. I know that there is a restaurant has an ample parking lot just to the east of the location, but also east of that location, there's a huge public parking lot that is open until 2 o'clock in the morning. Also, just west of Saturn Ranch, that is also part of this particular parcel, has ample parking to the west. One of the also item number 2, this particular commercial building was remodeled in November 2022. This is just before they opened their business operation. There used to be a coffee shop, Starbucks, that used to house here. So when they moved in, they did a TI, a tenant improvement to the location. The building continues to be maintained. Item number 3, the establishment has surveillance cameras. One of the items that the applicant is proposing is to have 2 security guards on site during the extended hours. Our code requires for them to have a minimum of 1 security officer to be present during extended hours, so this exceeds the code requirements. In addition to that, we contacted the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department to provide us the 12-month cost for service. Although they've only been in operation since November, we wanted to see if there were any other concerns with previous business operations that were there, and the results were that there was a total of 6 calls, 5 which were related to traffic on the street. They were not related or associated to the business operation. There was only 1 call that took place on a Sunday, November 6th at 2:30 about an unhoused disturbing a customer. In addition to that, we compared the service calls to a different establishment, another pizza place that is located on Sunset and Doheny that it currently operates until 3 o'clock in the morning, and the cost for service for that establishment were 0 calls. In addition to that, we pulled our database for code enforcement to see if we had received any complaints, noise complaints, and for both locations were no or 0 complaints for both locations. The line number 4, and on my screen it shows under 1, I don't understand, but the business would also be conditioned if this license is granted, is that they have a security guard monitor the adjacent parking lot and to ask any individuals that are causing any type of nuisance to leave the property. In addition to that, we will condition that they do not operate their outdoor dining after 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure that there's no noise complaints from residential neighborhoods. So with that, these are the additional requirements that I've mentioned earlier, that will be the operative requirements that they need to abide by. For example, they need to have a manager required, that they don't install any type of lighting or glare that is going to be a nuisance to the nearby property owners or residential properties, noise, any traffic impacts, parking, which it was discussed earlier in the crime prevention by them having 2 security guards. reports. So with that, we recommend that the commission finds that the business has met the criteria needed in the West Hollywood Municipal Code. In addition, in posting that they're approved for the extended hours on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday between the hours of 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., that they have at least 2 security guards during their extended hours, and lastly, that they abide by their operating requirements set in 5.52.30, and of course, that they close the outdoor dining area by 2 o'clock. So this concludes my presentation. We're available for any questions you may have. I know the applicant is present here as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me. Vice Chair Eisenberg and members of the commission, if I could just ask for clarification from staff. So the extended hour request for Dobrik's Pizza, as I read the resolution and the staff report, is for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Are we including Thursday in that as well?
Well, on paper, what the applicant is requesting is to be open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but in reality, the date is for the Friday because they close at 2 a.m., so it would start from 2 to 3, and then Saturday, and then the Saturday operation will end on Sunday. That's why it reads as such.
Okay, so there's no change to the reso as proposed based on that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do any commissioners have any questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Huang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have a question for staff. I know that you mentioned there were no service calls with the Sheriff's Department. Were there any service calls for block by block at all to this establishment?
We do not check for block and block. We only check with the code enforcement and the Sheriff's Department for calls for service.
Okay, might be a good idea to check with block by block as well, since they may be patrolling in that area. Thank you.
Commissioner Yusborough?
Yeah, I have a question to the staff. So you said there were parking in the next door business. Does this business have a right to park there?
On that particular establishment, it's part of their business footprint, and the applicant
So
is present as well.
the applicant has how many parking spaces that,
They have about 5 parking spaces on the lot, on the site.
and then there is a business on the east that has parking.
Correct. That's for a neighbor of theirs that sits in the back of the property.
Does this business have any right to that park, or do they have any agreement with the business?
I don't know, but the applicant is here, so I'll defer to the applicant to see if they can use those parking spaces after 2 o'clock in the morning.
If I could, Vice Chair and members of the commission, staff did conduct a site visit yesterday of both properties, the Carney's and the subject property, Dobrik's Pizza. The parking lot at Carney's, that entire parking area is reserved only for Carney's. And in fact, they have signs that indicate at the entrance to their parking lot that no other parking is allowed, including for Dobrik's. So that parking area for Carney's is specific to Carney's and not shared with anyone.
And same thing on the west side, I'm assuming.
On the west side, there are 3 parking spaces adjacent to Saddle Ranch, and there's an additional 2, so a total of 5. On the screen here is a better depiction of where those parking spaces are. So you see 3 along that are along the property there at Saddle Ranch, and then there's an additional 2 behind that are perpendicular to those vertical parking stalls, if you will. And then there's also a handicap parking space behind the Dobrik's Pizza itself. To the east of the property, the immediate east, there's 4 parking spaces for Fame, which is the tenant to the east of the property. So if you look at this aerial, those 4 parking spaces to the east of the property there, those are specific to that building and tenant called Fame. As you go to the rear of the property, there's an additional 3 parking spaces for tenant spaces. And that area back there is also where the restroom is located for this property. It's a shared restroom with all of those tenants.
On this picture, the building 8365, which is in the back.
Yes,
So is that where the restroom is?
correct.
And is that building 65 and then 83, 67, are they operational at night, at midnight?
I believe 67 is operational. The building to the rear, 65, it looked like there were signage, but I couldn't tell if they were operational at night. In fact, I couldn't tell if there were actual tenants in those spaces back there. Perhaps the applicant from Dobrik's can answer that question. But when we conducted our site visit yesterday morning, I didn't see anybody in any of that other tenant space.
And then lastly, at the entrance to that plaza, there are 4 parking spaces on the east side.
Correct.
Those belong to the which structure?
So immediately adjacent to those 4 parking spaces is a tenant space called FAME, F-A-M-E, and that belongs to 8367.
Okay, but we don't know if they're operational.
That space is operational. The tenant space to the rear, 8365, that's where the restroom is located, and then there are 2 other spaces. I think one of those spaces is possibly used by Dobrik's. No? Okay, I saw some items out there that might look related, but I don't know if there's any tenants in that space back there. There are none. Okay, then I was correct in my observation.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Commissioner Eng?
Yeah, 8367 Fame, you said it was open in the evening. What hours, what kind of business is it, and what are their hours?
I don't know their hours. I believe they're a talent search company that has an office there.
Commissioner Hain?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Director, I just want to say thank you to the members of the public who sent in the many public comments. I just wanted to recognize that I did read it. All of us here did read it, so we do hear members of the public. A lot of members of the public were complaining or had indicated in their public comment in the emails that customers were parking in the neighborhoods, in front of their house, disturbing residential life, pretty much. Just based on what I know of this block and this aerial view, these parcels are pretty big, so I'm just trying to get a gauge of how deep the neighborhood is in there.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the Commission. The specific area that has the most complaints of parking is Kings Road, which is to the west of the subject property, and it's north of Sunset Boulevard. And that is the area that we've seen some communications about parking and impacts from the Dobrik's customers and patrons that go there. So that's certainly an area that I believe it's in the city. I believe it's in the city of LA.
It is in the city of LA. If you look at the aerial picture, it has a mark S&P because it is a parking location. It has about 3 to 4 parking spaces. It is, as you can see on the screen, it says 1474 Kings Road parking. If you have a permit, you can park at that location. If you do not have a permit, obviously you're illegally parked there, and then LAPD or their parking enforcement would have to either tow you or follow their protocol. But that is beyond our jurisdiction.
Commissioner Eng?
So they're supposed to contact the city of Los Angeles, not the city of West Hollywood.
For parking enforcement, that would be correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to ask, what Saddle Ranch is currently open?
Yes.
And what are their hours of operation?
They operate until 2 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
Anyone else? Okay. How many parking spaces does Saddle Ranch have?
They have over 15 parking, and they have on-site valet parking as well.
15
1.5
parking spaces?
approximately.
Okay. How well marked is the location of the bathroom inside Dobrik's?
Repeat your question.
One of the complaints that we read is that there's the impression that there's no bathroom in this place. How well marked is it in Dobrik's that the restrooms are in the rear, in this other building?
I'm not sure. Go ahead, Vito.
Thank you, Vice Chair Eisenberg and members of the Business License Commission. If you could, Jessica, please go back to the slide prior to this, showing the aerial. So in this photograph, in the corner of the building there between 8367 and 8365, you see like a hashed area. That leads into a doorway that goes into a bathroom, a restroom facility, through a glass door. That is signed. There's a sign there that says restrooms, and the door is locked. The key is given from the Dobrik's Pizza staff for individuals who need to use the restroom. They would have to go across that parking lot into that little corner entrance and go into the restroom. But there is a restroom on the property.
Okay, where are the keys? Are there signs in Dobrik's showing that they have the restroom keys?
I'll let the applicant speak to that, but we did confirm the presence of the restroom. It is available.
Okay. And Carney's, we understand, had to hire a security guard to keep patrons of Dobrik's out of their parking lot?
That is my understanding. We did visit the Carney's property and also met with the owner and had a tour of the property. They do have security. They are not open till 3 a.m. I believe they are open till midnight. And they have reported some parking issues where they have to have security.
Okay, so they had to hire somebody. They had to hire a security firm.
Correct.
Okay, the other issues that were raised by nearby residents and tenants was there seemed to be inadequate trash receptacles because they're finding garbage all over the residential streets.
I think it would be a good opportunity for the applicant once they approach the podium and respond to the commission's questions on how that will be addressed.
Okay.
When we visited the subject property, we found the property well maintained. It appeared that some of the parking areas there was no trash. It was very clean at the time of our inspection, which was yesterday morning.
And what time of day was that?
That was about, I believe it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so not when there would be a lot of customers.
Was
for a
not
pizza place.
later in the evening. No, it was in the morning.
Okay. I assume the Saddleback Ranch parking lot is always full for their customers. That's been a place that's been around for a long time and is quite popular.
I'm not able to confirm that because at the time of our inspection, obviously our visit, it was in the morning. So I'd have to go by there in the evening to see what the parking load is on that business.
But they do have a valet parking.
Yes, it's my
Now-
understanding they do.
Now, I assume that the building in the back, which is currently empty, I assume they're looking for tenants?
I assume so. I will have the applicant speak to that.
Okay. Is it the same, well, you don't know if it's the same property owner?
I
that
believe
owns
it
both
is.
Buildings? Okay.
Yes.
So presumably, if a tenant was to come in there, they would use those parking spaces?
Correct.
Okay. I think I have no more questions for staff at this time.
Okay.
Wait, I have one more. When you went to speak to the owner of Carney's, Manager Adamitis, was the complaint about parking when he's open or after he's closed? If there's that discrepancy, if they're closing at midnight, was his complaint that the lot is being taken during their open hours or after they're closed, or both?
It's my understanding during operational hours, when there is obviously a need for parking, when the business is open, they're open until midnight. They're not open until 3 a.m. They do have a security guard that regularly redirects cars that are attempting to park in their lot to the property next door. And they have a sign. There's a sign to the rear of the property, and there's a sign there's actually two. There's an entrance that's further east in this photo, and there's an exit. And in both those areas, I saw signs that said parking only for this establishment, which is Carney's.
Do you happen to know if Carney's puts a chain up across their parking lot after they're closed?
I don't know. I did not see a chain at the time of my visit, but they may put one up just to ensure that people don't go on the property when they're closed. It would make sense.
Commissioner Hang? Sorry.
Thank you, Vice Chair. In case it's necessary, can you explain the process where the business might be required to apply for a valet parking license?
I'll have my code enforcement supervisor,
Yes, so
Jessica.
a couple of things is that if Dobrik's were to acquire the services or valet service, they would first start with the planning division, and the planning division would look at where they're going to park the overflow, whether it's feasible, and then if it's feasible, then they can apply for a valet business license or potentially a parking use permit, which it would have to go before the director of the planning division to see if it meets the guidelines, and then apply for a business license.
Can that business possibly share valet parking with the establishment next door? I mean, we just established, we don't know what time Saddle Ranch opens until, but I'm just throwing it out there as an option, because parking seems to be the sticking point. It's upsetting neighbors within the city of Los Angeles. Let me get that out there, not West Hollywood. And the residents should be calling the city of Los Angeles to tow these vehicles away, not city of West Hollywood enforcement. So the burden at the end of the day is on the city of Los Angeles, but parking seems to be the issue. And we want to see our businesses here succeed, but parking seems to be an impediment.
So the valet company would have to obviously talk to the planning division if they could have shared valet, and definitely that could be a possibility. I've seen that in other establishments.
Could you repeat, you said earlier, how close is the nearest municipal parking lot?
One second. So just east of this location, we have Carney's, and then after that, it's a public parking. It is not city-owned, but it's a privately owned parking lot. I know a valet operator, it's general parking for anybody that is either going to Saddle Ranch, right, if they don't want to park there, or any other establishment there, but is probably, I want to say, about 400 feet east from this location, from the subject business.
Do you know what the average parking fee is in that lot?
I do not know, but typically from what I recall, it can range from $20 to $15, but.
It's congestion parking prices. In other words, it varies depending on how busy the traffic is.
Usually
correct?
that's the market price for that area.
Okay, but this is a pizza place. Okay, so, all right. Any other questions? Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Of the existing meters that are within city boundaries that are our meters, what time do they expire, out of curiosity, around that establishment?
I don't have that information with you, so that I do not want to misinform you. Because different areas, they have different times.
Do we know how many spots there are within like 100 feet radius?
Oh, yeah, there are meters, but depending on the district, they have different expiration times.
But do we know roughly how many spots there are? Spots are
Within
disappearing on Sunset.
within the location, without looking at the area map, from Dobrik's all the way to Harper, which would be the very first intersection, I would say there is at least 10 parking meters. Actually, not Harper, but it would be Switzer.
How many other restaurants are in the area where there are evening patrons? Besides Saddleback Ranch and Carney's, are there others?
At this point, no, because the other restaurant that it was right at the corner of Sweetserd and Sunset, it closed during the pandemic. If we go just south, we have the hotels at the
At
end.
the Source? You're referring to the old Source?
No, Cabo Cantina. I'm talking about Cabo Cantina,
Same
which is
place,
east.
same place.
Well, Cabo Cantina is the one that was at that location. They closed during COVID. Unfortunately, they didn't reopen. But those are the only restaurants on that strip if we look at Kings all the way to Sweetser.
And nothing on the other side of the street?
On the south side, we had the Standard Hotel, but right now it's closed. If we are now driving westbound on Sunset, we have the City Park, and after that we have Sunset Tower, and then we have the Western Hotel, and then we have other small newspaper, and then we have the Pendry Hotel.
So presumably in the hotels, if they were to have valet parking, they could very well find spots in those hotels for the cars.
All those valet, or actually all the hotels have valet service. They have a parking.
No, I mean, if Dobrik's were to have valet parking or to have shared with Saddleback Ranch, need additional spots, presumably they could rent them from hotel space.
That I don't know, because that is a planning question.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yeah. Save it till later? Okay. I think, does the applicant want to make a presentation? You will have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for having us and for hearing our request. My name is Matthew Mello. I am the agent representing the applicant. I'm a land use planner with FE Design and Consulting. I'm just going to give a brief background on the business and then defer to the business owner, the general manager who is here present. So the namesake of the restaurant is a Mr. David Dobrik, who has secured success over the last decade on a variety of tech and social media platforms. This is his first restaurant venture with his business partner, Mr. Ilya Fedorovich. They've enjoyed immense success in the less than 6 months that they've been open and brought a lot of commerce to the city of West Hollywood. It is a pizzeria featuring Chicago-style pizza, not necessarily the ubiquitous deep dish pizza that we're familiar with on the West Coast, but rather tavern-style and pan-style Chicago pizza to give Midwestern transplants a taste of home and LA natives something new to experience. The design concept is meant to capture the retro vibes of a suburban Chicago pizzeria. In the time that they've been open, they have gauged kind of demonstrable demand for these additional hours on the weekends. These extended hours would create an additional revenue window for the business, which is vital in a challenging industry with competitive profit margins such as restaurants are. We contend that having more late-night food-only options would actually be a net benefit for the city writ large, especially given that it's adjacent to Sunset Boulevard nightlife, nightclubs, comedy clubs, and bars. We obviously concur with the staff's recommendations to approve the request. The applicant has met all the criteria for consideration and will comply fully with the imposed conditions as it pertains to security, noise abatement, ample lighting, and promptly responding to customer complaints. Which leads me to my conclusion. We are very much aware of the concerns that have been expressed by neighboring tenants and neighboring residents. It only recently came to our attention, but we have acted promptly to respond. And the team is sensitive to these legitimate concerns and extremely responsive to what they can do to create a solution with all the partners involved. As such, they met with the owner of Carney's restaurant yesterday, I believe, or this morning. And as such, they assured him that signage and employee instructions will henceforth direct patrons to the Dobrik's restroom and not the Carney's restroom. In addition, they are going to produce signage for the Carney's parking lot that will explicitly prohibit patrons from Dobrik's parking there. In terms of the concerns levied by residents along Kings Road, they will address these concerns accordingly and responsively, as a good neighbor does. They will have somebody assigned every day to clean the vicinity of the restaurant of trash and litter, and employees will be strongly encouraged to bike or take transit to their shifts so that they are not taking up any nearby parking. The parking provided does satisfy the code requirements, but they do acknowledge humbly that parking is difficult in most corners of West Hollywood due to the city's attractiveness and amenities. The applicant team would certainly support LADOT imposing stricter permits on the Kings Road parking. And with that, I will pass it over to Frank, who is the restaurant general manager.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Any questions? I
If you could state your name and city of residence, please.
My name is Frank DeAndre. I work, the general manager of Dobrik's. I actually live in Santa Monica.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I can just speak to about the presentation. I personally did speak with John, the owner of Carney's, and we discussed different options. And so we are having 2 signs made. I had brought over a sign for him to post maybe 2 months ago, but he has a lot of signs for no parking. So we're making this one, we discussed the size of it and the look of it, so it's larger so that people can see. So 2 signs saying no parking for Dobrik's or they will be towed. The other things that we've been working on, I have talked with the person who runs the valet, and we can send people over to the Saddle Ranch because the valet, they actually use the spots in the evening from Fame and the spots in front of the back building. So they use all those spots for the valet, and so our customers can go over and use the valet from Saddle Ranch also.
Any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Commissioner Yusborough? Okay.
I'm sorry, can you tell me your name again?
Yes, Frank.
Frank, I'm curious why you didn't speak to the owner of Carney's until this morning.
Oh, we've communicated with them a number of times. And like I said, I actually supplied a sign that said no Dobrik's parking maybe 2 to 3 months ago.
But were you aware at that time that there was any complaints on their part?
Oh, for the parking?
Just in any complaints at all?
Sure. We talked to all the neighbors, and again, we try to work out those issues. So for trash, we would put up signs suggesting that people take items on plates rather than boxes because that will cut down on the trash. We do have ample trash bins around the outside, and we're continually cleaning that up. Some of our customers come from different locations where they've parked. Maybe they've gone out to a bar or the comedy club. They come in and grab a slice, and then they leave. They don't stay there. And so from there, I have no idea what they do.
Can you tell me the average, I guess, duration of patrons' visits? I mean, are they usually dining in? It's like 50% are dining in and 50% are to go, or do you have a gauge of that?
It's probably, it's different during different times of the day, obviously, but we are really a to-go location. We don't have, we don't have a lot of seating. We have the patio, but it's really a lot of slices. So people come in for lunch, they grab slices, they leave, and throughout the evening, like I said, it's people who are out in West Hollywood at different locations, different events. They come in for slices, and sometimes they eat on the patio, and often they just take their slices to go.
It would seem that the after hours might be more likely, those visitors might be more likely to hang out than just take it to go?
I don't think so. A lot of those people are just grabbing food on their way home, after the other establishments have closed.
Okay, and then is it possible for you to work out with Carney's that you could use or rent their lot after hours?
I spoke to him yesterday about that, and yeah.
He declined, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Yusborough, anything more?
Hi, I have a couple of questions. So what's the size of the indoor seating? Like how many seating places do you have?
For indoor seating?
Yes.
We don't have indoor seating.
You don't have. So, and after 2 a.m., are you planning to operate as regularly with the patio open, or is the patio going to be closed and it's going to be just takeout?
They walk through the patio to get into the front door. If we're able to allow people to, and we have a security guard that's stationed right by the entrance to the patio and very close to the entrance of the building. So everyone passes by the security guard, and he often is doing line control or crowd control. We would like to offer seating for people who come in for slices. You know, we're doing just slices, sodas, and soft serve ice cream. So no one is spending, you know, very much time at Dobrik's. They come in, they have their slices, and they're on their way, especially after 2 o'clock.
So, and what's the typical customer? They would pick up their slices and they would just eat it right there outside the pizza place. Is that or in their cars?
Yeah, well, we have the option for them to eat at the patio, but often people just come in to grab them on their way home. They eat them at home afterwards, after a night of drinking.
How big is the patio and how many people can fit there?
So the patio is probably 30 by 15, and the seating there, we have approximately 20 seats.
20 seats with the like two people per table, something like that.
Yeah, yes, and we have a bar facing Sunset that has 10 seats, so it might be about 25.
And then the people cannot fit there; they just end up on the street or sidewalk, like sitting on
Sorry?
Where do the other people eat that cannot fit in that patio? Is that patio full at all times?
No, it's not full at all times, but we also have 3 stand-up tables along the side of the building that people can use, but we don't have people sitting on the sidewalks and, you know, on the curb eating. We also have, we have the items to create lines to make sure that they're not taking up the sidewalk, because we worked with the sheriff on that, because when we first opened up, we had very large crowds and we really had to wrangle that. So we have barriers for lining people up and crowd control.
And what's the average check for the customer?
The average
Check.
The average check, probably around $20.
Okay, and what is going to change after? Like right now, you guys are open till 2 o'clock.
That's correct.
And what kind of changes there will be if you are open from 2 to 3 a.m.?
What changes will we be doing, or
Yes,
how
what
will
ki-
it change our business?
Well, we just heard that you will be having an extra security person, right? So would that security person be coming at 2 a.m. until 3 a.m., or will that person be there earlier than 2 a.m.?
They would probably come and stay for, we would probably have someone actually come earlier and stay through, and then we have our current security guard is there from midnight till 7 in the morning. So then we would have an overlap. We would bring in someone earlier.
And would the security person be doing any other work aside from observing security? Would they be?
No, they don't work for us. We hire a security, armed security company, and the only work that they do is, like I said, line control or crowd control. That's all. We don't have them doing anything else other than that. We like them to stay focused.
So compared to the way you're doing business now, you will have an additional dedicated security person present there earlier than 2 a.m. and at least until 3 a.m.
Well, for us, it would, if we're going to have another person there, security companies don't want to send somebody over for an hour. We've learned that from the past because we've used security companies. So we would, it would be great for us to bring a security guard in earlier if we're going to have 2, and then they overlap in those important hours of midnight till hopefully 3 a.m. So we could have 2, and then we would have the one person till 7 a.m. after we close.
So is that part of the plan? Because that's what I gathered through city presentation, that was the 2 security guards were part of the plan.
Well, we're open to anything, but I'm just learning really about the 2 a.m., the second security guard. But we're willing to do that. We have a security company that for events, we've had 12 security guards at different times at Dobrik's. So,
Vice
and
Chair.
so for me, scheduling, we would definitely schedule for, an earlier, when we start getting busy, 7 p.m.
If I could, Vice Chair Eisenberg and members of the Business License Commission, the applicant is conditioned as part of the conditions for the permit, for the extended hour permit. He is required to have 2 security guards present during all hours of the extended business license operation. In addition, the use of the outdoor patio is prohibited during extended hour operation between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. to prevent noise impacts. So all patrons that are in the patio area must exit that area by 2 a.m. That is a condition of the permit that's written into the item before
the
you.
applicant is familiar with those conditions?
The applicant will have to comply with these conditions because they are part of the permit that's being issued.
So basically, after 2 a.m., it becomes a takeout place. There wouldn't be any...
Yeah, the use of the outdoor patio would not be allowed, and 2 security guards are required to be on site for the extended hour operation. It's required. It says must be present.
Okay. One more question about the cleaning person. So do you have a dedicated cleaning person that goes around the neighborhood or vicinity and picks up trash, or is that one of the people who maybe sell the pizza and then do it after hours?
Well, we have a cleaning company that comes in after we close, but we have a number of our employees are sent out to clean the patio, clean the parking lot, clean up the area constantly, because we are very busy, and so we need to do that on a daily basis to maintain the cleanliness of the location anyways.
Okay. And one more question. So you tried to negotiate any renting any parking spaces from your neighboring businesses, from Carney's or Fame or any other businesses?
Well, with Carney's, we do currently rent 3 spaces at the hotel, nearby hotel, for employees to park there. And again, we work very well with the valets at Saddle Ranch because we have shared parking areas. And again, when they, at night when they're open, they take over those spaces in our parking lot area for Fame. And so they are happy to take care of our customers also and have them use the valet.
And the Carney's, if they close at 2 a.m., what happens to their parking lot after 2 a.m.? Is it just...
I'm not sure if they close it up, but
Close at midnight.
they
Oh, they close at midnight. Okay. So
yeah.
But you haven't asked them to use it after they close, to use their parking lot
Well,
for a fee, maybe.
I was actually, part of it was I wanted to make sure that our employees had easy parking, so I was seeing if we could rent spaces for that. I have not talked to Carney's about allowing our customers. I don't think they want our customers in their parking lot at all. They want to make sure that that's established. So I can speak to him tomorrow about after 12 o'clock after they close, but it didn't sound like
that would make sense if they get extra money from their parking space while they're not using it. That would actually make sense.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Egg?
Yeah, Frank, I have 2 questions. You mentioned that your security guards are rent-a-cops or rental. You just said armed guards. Are your guards armed?
I was going to ask that.
Are the guards armed?
Are your guards armed? You mentioned that you
The company that we hire, they are an armed security guard company.
But the ones that you're utilizing, are they armed?
Joe may be armed, yes.
You don't know?
I assume they're an armed company, so yes, let me say yes, he's probably armed.
Okay, I find that really,
I don't think that's allowed in West Hollywood.
Sorry, that's not
I
allowed?
don't think the security guards are allowed to be armed. Okay,
For an armed security company? If they're not, then
excuse me,
we
staff.
So that is correct, Frank. The conditions, they will be unarmed security guards, okay?
okay,
do not
that
allow
can be
that.
easily taken care of, even for
Yes.
this evening.
yeah.
Typically, some companies, they're licensed to be armed, but not necessarily that they're gonna deploy security guards that are armed here in the city of West Hollywood, so.
The condition is
For a
written.
for a restaurant, we have armed guards for restaurants around the city?
No, I said that there are the companies that are armed with the state of California, but the arms that they have to use here, they have to be unarmed unless they have a special permit through the sheriff's department. Thank you.
I'd like to actually just say to not know whether or not someone is bringing a
They're
gun to your
armed.
establishment. I know, but just that you didn't actually know that, that's deeply
Well,
concerning
the
to
reason
me.
why is the current one, the security guard that works there, Joe. I don't see a weapon on him, where the other ones have a weapon directly on their chest or at their side.
Okay, and we're now actually discovering that that is not allowed, so, I'm not thrilled to hear that. And then I'm curious, Frank, you mentioned when Manager Adamitis said that the 2 security guards were required, you didn't seem to know that, so I'm curious who's been dealing with the extension and the application. And I guess I'm curious about the disconnect of the actual establishment not knowing.
Okay, so we do have a corporate office, and they deal with a lot of that because I'm the general manager of a pizza establishment that has long hours, a lot of customers, so I'm running around taking care of operations. So I know about the operation side, parking, the neighbors, dealing with all of that. I was not aware of the second security guard. That decision would be made by Elia and Emma, and they would be doing the hiring, and they're going through the permit process. I am here to talk about operational issues.
Okay, and then I guess I'm curious, and how is that communication flow happening?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
How's the communication flow happening then?
How is the communication?
Communication flow. In other words, right, you were here undergoing this process, but there seem to be some key things that you don't know, and I'm just kind of curious who's managing then that, then how is that communication happening if your organization
So the way we work is if we need something, we get it. There's not an issue for that. So for a second security guard, you say second security guard, we have a second security guard tomorrow. So that's how we have worked. We haven't had issues. They are amazing owners, and they give us what we need. And so that's how that works. I was not I did not fill out the permit. Again, I am the manager of operations for that, and I'm dealing with the operations right now.
how involved are the owners then?
They're very involved.
Commissioner
Chair,
Yang?
Vice Chair Eisenberg, and members of the commission, the condition of the permit as written says the business operator shall not employ security guards armed with firearms or tasers. Staff is happy to provide a copy of all of the permit conditions and ensure that the manager here is aware of those conditions. So there's clarity going forward on what's required and what is being allowed.
There will be no armed guard there this evening.
Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Question for staff. I guess since there was an admittance of an armed guard, is there a fine that will be levied? Is there any repercussion for this? This is not something that the city or this commission would take lightly. like a clear violation of established rules?
So a couple of things. We need to look at their history with what we've done, and we have to follow the process. But also, I want to make a clarification that staff has been dealing with Mr. Matthew Mello and also Ilya, the business owner, and so I will call Matthew to talk about the process.
Yeah, if I may, I've been semi-single-handedly working on the extended hours license for the applicant, and I've been dealing with Ilya Fedorovich, who is Mr. Dobrik's business partner. So they're the ones that have been handling the intricacies and the kind of the granular details of the license. As far as the armed security is concerned, I also filled out the security plan. One of the questions was whether or not the guards would be armed. There was nothing on there saying that there's a prohibition against armed guards. If that was the case, we wouldn't have even, A, answered that question because it wouldn't have been allowed, but B, we certainly would not have counseled them to have armed guards.
But wait, up until now, you have had an armed guard?
I'm not involved in the daily, day-to-day operation. I'm just their agent, if you will. However, part of the actual application asks, will your guards be armed? With no sort of asterisk or, by the way, that would be prohibited in the city of West Hollywood. It simply asks it as a matter of fact. And I know that the guards that they've hired are licensed to carry arms, but can't say with 100% certainty that they would do so in their employ at Dobrik specifically versus other locations.
Well, Frank just mentioned that there was a guard that's not Joe that has a gun.
And I'll take him at his word, yeah.
How did you answer the question on the application when they asked whether the guards would be armed?
I answered that they were licensed to be armed and did provide copies of those licenses, or verified where they got those licenses from, which agency, which company.
Was this on the current application or the original application for a security guard?
It was on the extended hours application specifically, not the business license one, the one specific to the extended hours license.
So in other words, it's for the proposed application that is before you tonight. Therefore, the conditions state that the security guards need to be unarmed.
Right, which they're 100% going to comply with and have no problem complying with. I was simply stating that this knowledge was not made known to them or to us in any of the application materials.
Okay. Commissioner Hank?
Thank you, Vice Chair. May I ask for myself if what is required on the application if the business operator does not even, it may not be aware of?
So typically for a restaurant, right, in this case, take away the extended hours business license, the fact that they're a pizza place, their occupancy is less than 49 individuals, it only requires for a public eating business license. It does not ask anything regarding security operations. Now, if they were serving alcohol, then that is something that we will be asking about the security operations. The only reason why we ask for the security operations is because the type of license that they're applying for extended hours, it requires it.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Frank, the manager? Can you tell me what your hours are, please?
Sorry?
Can you please tell me what your hours are, how long you work at the site?
So my hours?
Your hours.
My hours vary. I don't have a schedule.
So you're not on the site full-time?
Well,
During opening hour or evening hours,
so
for example?
we have a lot of management for this establishment. We are open from 11 to 10 Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then 11 to 12 on Thursday, and then 11 to 2 on Friday and Saturday.
So
I work a lot of hours.
do you have another position within the company where you're somewhere else at other times?
No.
So this is your primary responsibility?
Yes, it is.
Is there another manager on site when you're not there?
Yes.
And what are their hours?
Their hours vary also because they are not scheduled. They are not an hourly employee. So
There's always a manager on site.
there's always a manager on site.
Can I ask, because there have been a lot of complaints from residents up and down Kings Road, I assume the first half a dozen homes up and down that road, have you had a meeting with the neighbors?
I have spoken with the neighbor, with the gentleman who is the representative for the neighborhood.
And when was that?
I've spoken with him in person, and I have gone back and forth through email.
And how recently have been your communications?
This was all maybe started Thursday or Friday over the weekend.
And that was were the first complaints that you were aware of from residents?
That's the first time I've been contacted by residents.
Have you considered, the residents are complaining about, even though you don't have control about what happens to your patrons after they leave the site, there has, I'm sure you've read the letters from the neighbors, they have been complaining about garbage from your patrons. Have you, in addition to having the cleaning crew who clean the patio and on site in your property, have you considered having a cleaning crew go up and down Kings Road and the other neighboring areas just to make sure there's no extra garbage in that area, even though you're not responsible for that property?
Well, we've talked about that, and this is, the first I heard of it from Kings Road and from that resident was last week. So that would take some planning because, what is the area? Is it just Kings Road? What is the area that we would be cleaning up? Are we cleaning up other businesses' garbage also? I definitely don't want our patrons throwing trash anywhere in West Hollywood. And we talked about promoting using our garbage cans and please don't litter in the neighborhood, and we will put up signs for that, but also sending employees out at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning into neighborhoods to clean up. There has to be some discussion and some planning for that.
Do you know how many neighbors this representative represented?
He didn't tell me.
So you didn't come to an agreement with him in any way?
No, we talked about what I could do to make sure that our employees don't park in those restricted areas, which they don't, and we've talked to them. We've basically dealt with the things that we can control, from the location. Obviously, I am open to, and I was open to listening to his thoughts, but I just said we just don't have a plan for sending our employees out into neighborhoods, and I wasn't sure if any of the other businesses did that either. Maybe we can get a business community team to do that, to keep West Hollywood looking beautiful. But right now, that I just heard about it last week, and that would take some planning and hiring, more hours.
Okay, the other establishments have been around for many years, all of them, and there doesn't seem to be any complaints about their patrons dropping garbage. But they're also not a takeout business. You're a takeout business. One of the things you just said to eliminate some of the garbage was to take them out on plates. If people are taking these out to go home, wouldn't it make more sense for them to be in boxes? So if they're on plates, they're probably eating right there or nearby.
We do both. The reason why we have been promoting plates was because a lot of the people who were eating there at our establishment were taking it in boxes, and they were creating a lot more garbage, the use of just using a box and throwing it away. So then we started promoting, if you're gonna eat here, if you're gonna eat on the patio, and we have signs stating this, please take it on a plate. But if they're gonna take it to go, they ask for a box and we give them a box.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about, you did mention that you don't know what other garbage might be coming from in the residence. Given that the other establishments are not takeout places, they're eat-in places, it's unlikely people would be carrying their garbage out with them. So more than likely, and from what I understand, your packaging is branded with Dobrik's on it. So if they think it's coming from Dobrik's, when it has their name on it, it likely is. Wouldn't that be correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew that if they're saying there's Dobrik's, it's Dobrik's. I'm just saying there's a lot of establishments around there. Sorry?
You said you weren't sure if it was all your garbage.
Yeah, I haven't gone up and looked at night to look at those things.
Okay. Do you know how many garbage receptacles you have on site?
Yes, we have, inside we have 2 plus recycling. Outside we have the large, I think they're like 45-gallon round receptacles. We have 2 of those, plus another garbage and recycling that is in a cabinet with open tops to put.
So outside in the patio area, you have 3?
3.
Okay, for 20 seatings? 20
Yes.
seats, 20 to 25 seats? Is there a lot of garbage on the ground that your employees need to pick up in the evening?
Well, napkins and things like that. They're not throwing plates and boxes around.
Okay, about how many people would you say come through in the evenings? I'm not concerned with during the day, but let's say from 8 o'clock on, 8 o'clock to your current closing hours, about how much traffic comes through?
Obviously, Friday and Saturdays are our busiest days, and so we may have a couple hundred. At night, starting from 8 on, we could have anywhere from 200-300 people come through.
And how long is a typical line? I mean, I understand Mr. Dobrik is an influencer and he gets a lot of his followers to come, and it's a very popular place. So how long is the current line? I mean, is it 10 people? Is it 20, 30 people at a time?
Probably 10 to 15 now. You know, when we first opened up, yes, they were much longer. But now, you know, it's just throughout steady people coming from the bars and clubs, things like that in the evening. So, and we move the line very quickly so it doesn't build up.
How long does it take to cook a typical pizza?
So we just started our new tavern on Friday, and that takes about 5 minutes. Our other pizza takes about 15 minutes to cook, but we have a system where people are not ordering and then we're preparing the pizza. We have pizzas constantly being prepared and cooked, and so if someone comes in for a slice of pizza, we have it ready, and we just put it through a conveyor oven. It takes 1 minute, 30 seconds, and it gets put on a plate or in a box, and they're ready to go.
Do you have an app to order?
We have online. We don't have an app right now.
But somebody can order online and get in line and wait, and their order will be ready for them?
Well, yes, they don't need to get in line. But yes, and we only do the whole pizzas online. We don't do slices.
You don't do slices. So, okay, so how quickly would you go through, how quickly would 20 people go through? Typically, I realize orders are different sizes, drinks and things like that, ice cream, but how quickly would 20 people, say, move through your establishment?
So 20 people, under 10 minutes.
20 people in under 10 minutes, 30 seconds a person.
Well, it's not like we stop somebody, take care of them, fully finish the transaction, and then the next person. People are constantly they're taking orders, putting them in the POS system. The order comes up. We have 3 other employees who are putting the slices in to be fully heated. There's another person on the end. They take it out, put it on a plate, and hand it off. So it's constantly moving.
But somebody has to pay for it at the end of that cycle, right?
At the beginning of the cycle.
They pay for it beforehand, but doesn't it typically, I'm just estimating, it almost takes 30 seconds just to have someone pay for it and then process through.
We have, we sell mostly slices. So they come up, they order their slices, they tap our POS system, and we don't take cash. So it's very quick for doing the tap, and they're off and running. The people are already putting slices. Someone is designated at the register. The person, when the order comes up, there's a designated person who puts the slices in to be warmed, and there's a designated person who takes them out, calls the name, or runs them outside.
but you think you can process a person in 30 seconds.
You asked me if we can do 20 people in, and
In
I
10
said 10 minutes. So there are all different kinds of transactions that happen, but none of those people have to wait until the full transaction happens, meaning they get their food until the next person can order. It is a constant flow. And we've gotten very good at that because right off the bat, we had to deal with many, many, many people.
You're basically saying, though, if you have 200 people in an evening, they're mostly going through in 100 minutes, less than 2 hours.
Well, this is over 8 o'clock. You're talking 8 o'clock till 2. That's 6 hours. So we can handle a lot of people in 6 hours. And it's very efficient. And we're constantly making pizzas, and we have pizzas prepared because we understand, and we don't want people standing around waiting for slices. We move very quickly.
Okay.
We even bought a special oven to make it even more efficient and quicker.
Okay. Does anyone else? Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Sir, are you prepared to, if the commission wills it to be a requirement for your establishment to have a valet service, are you prepared to go through with that process? Because that would require you now to submit an application to long-range planning for them to do a feasibility study if it is impossible for your site to even have a valet service. But are you prepared for your business to go through that?
If I could, Vice Chair and members of the commission, the items before you is the extended hour permit and application as conditioned by staff with a recommendation for your consideration. So the additional request to pursue a valet parking item and permit is not before the commission tonight.
And if I could just also, good evening, Vice Chair, members of the Business License Commission, Danny Rivas, Director of Community Safety for the City of West Hollywood. So the Business License Commission cannot require that a business pursue a valet license because there are a number of different components as a part of that application process that a business would have to secure. Obviously, this business took on a space and that was a legal non-conforming use. Staff did reach out to planning and building and safety as a part of that approval process. Planning did sign off on that as a part of their zone clearance. So if there, are parking concerns, which certainly I'm hearing, and I know that staff has gone through that with the Business License Commission in depth. If there are mitigation factors that the business can enact to, maintain operations so that it is not obviously impacting surrounding businesses and residents, whether they're in West Hollywood or in Los Angeles, that's certainly something that a business can look to work through, but the Business License Commission cannot force or require as a part of a condition of approval, right, that a business has to have valet operations. There's a cost behind that in addition to just going through the approval process. So in many instances, folks will apply, and because they cannot secure where they're actually going to be housing the parking of the vehicles, sometimes those applications gets denied, right, through planning and that process. So we just want to make sure that we're looking at the findings and being as fair and consistent and as reasonable as possible. I mean, getting into the operations of the business is certainly questions that the Business License Commission can ask. But really what before you this evening is the extended hours and based off of the elements and the criteria that's set in the municipal code. I also want to just kind of speak to the armed and unarmed security aspect. It is written in our municipal code that cannabis businesses are not allowed to have armed security. However, there is no such requirement in the municipal code as it relates to public eating establishments or public eating with alcohol establishments. It has been the standard practice of the city to look at that closely and obviously, condition that, which is what is written in the resolution to kind of keep consistent with what the standard practice has been. But that is why, as part of the security plan application that somebody fills out, staff does have that question, as to whether they're planning to propose armed or unarmed security. If they are proposing armed security, then that is definitely something that staff takes an opportunity to educate the applicant on and make them informed of. In addition to that, anytime that there's a resolution that's passed by the Business License Commission, that is something that an applicant has to not only adhere to, but essentially when they receive that, they are declaring that they have read and that they understand that, right? And so if they choose to read it or not, because there are several conditions in there, if we get calls, if staff is going out and doing proactive checks as well, which typically occur at least once a year at business establishments, especially with our extended hours, if they are observing stuff like that before it's brought to our attention, then staff addresses that and follows through the normal kind of administrative code compliance process.
So then what are the limitations to the caveats that we can require? Because I was under the impression that based on past meetings, the commission can add in stipulations or caveats. I just want there to be a win-win situation. Residents are complaining about parking. Parking seems to be an issue. They're leaving the establishment throwing trash. The business owner cannot control what people do outside of leaving his restaurant. If we can require a valet permit, I think that might help alleviate stress on both sides.
Yeah. So you can certainly speak to, the commission can certainly require, that they have maybe somebody that's going out and cleaning in terms of making sure that, areas are kept clear of debris or trash, litter, et cetera, as it relates to security as well. Those are all things that are outlined in the municipal code, and that's reiterated in the staff report. And that's why you have specific findings that are outlined in that. But nothing in there states that it gives the Business License Commission the ability to require valet operations from a business. That's completely different and separate. So I would encourage the commission, as you receive these staff reports for extended hours, there's municipal code sections as well that are tied to those, and that's where staff is pulling that from. So please feel free to read the municipal code as well, read the staff report. I know you all do as well, but it's also important to read the resolution and outline a lot of the conditions that are stated in there, because I did hear staff this evening mention some of those conditions based off of some of the questions. So staff is also able to meet with each commissioner separately if you have questions about an item, so that we can spend adequate time going through these questions as well in advance.
But what we can't do is just deny it. That's what we can't do if we cannot require a valet license. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think now would be a good time to see if there's any public comments, any people from the community that would like to speak.
Yes, we have two public speakers. First, we have Aaron Kamen.
Hey there.
You have 3 minutes.
What?
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry I had a bit of a script, but
If you could state your name and city of residence, please.
My name is Aaron Kamen, and I'm a resident of Los Angeles. So I guess on that, I'd politely say, or make a comment that we might live in Los Angeles, but we're much West Hollywood as anybody else. Be kind to your neighbors. We're all in this together. I'm here representing myself, my family, my neighbors, and the voices of 2,000 households in the Doheny Sunset Plaza Neighborhood Association, north of Sunset from Crescent Heights to La Colina. We urge you to deny Dobrik's application for extended hours. Also consider that this application would set a dangerous precedent and encourage a new level of extended hour applications. Dobrik's thus far has been a terrible neighbor. Their complete disregard for our community and their own is evident in the way their customers and employees have treated our streets like a playground. Carney's Restaurant, Saddle Ranch, and countless local and countless local residents can attest to that fact. Customers litter Dobrik's packaging and products, they loiter. We've had reports of vandalization and the disregard for parking and traffic restrictions come with impunity. It's been a long and frustrating only 6 months since Dobrik's opened its doors, and our community is already exhausted from being subjected to the neglect. Please take action. This situation is not only inconvenient, but also a danger to our community's safety. I'll point out too that Dobrik's doesn't answer the phone. So we've tried, a lot of people have tried to complain. It's not easy to complain at 10 o'clock at night to go down there and talk to somebody. So that's been a big issue. And I guess I'll hurry it up here because my time's running out. But, you know, since a lot of people, residents are within only 500 feet, LA is only within 500 feet of Dobrik's. A lot of our complaints we've had to deal with is with City of LA. So we have to call LAPD, we have to call City of LA parking enforcement. I'm just surprised at a lot of the things that the staff report left out. Anyways, that's
Thank
my
you.
time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jordan Cockrum.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jordan Cockrum. I'm a resident of West Hollywood. I'm sorry I couldn't join you up on the dais tonight. The first orientation is on Thursday, but hopefully, assuming everything goes well, I'll be up there with you in June. I wanted to speak in support of Dobrik's Pizza because I think it's not only good for the city revenue-wise, but we want to support our businesses. It was one of the biggest things I spoke on when I ran during my campaign. And it's tough enough to run a business as it is, but those extra hours of revenue help keep you afloat. It also allows people who are leaving bars at 1:45 a.m. to find a place to stay and sober up before they go home. And it also alleviates the prices for rideshare if not everyone is trying to leave the bars at the same time. I will acknowledge what the previous speaker said about it being impossible or hard to contact Dobrik's because they don't answer the phone. That's something he said the staff report didn't mention and that we didn't mention at all at tonight's meeting. I think that's something that certainly would need to be addressed because you need to be able to contact them if something is going on, especially at those hours of the night. I think assuming that that somehow gets taken care of, it seems that they've met all the requirements of the city. They're willing to go far and beyond what they need to do. And given that, I would support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public speakers?
There are no public speakers at this time.
Okay, staff deliberation. I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and put the matter back to the commission for discussion and deliberation. Okay. Commissioner Yusborough.
So I think it looks to me that the business is already operating and creating a lot of noise in the neighborhood. They're already causing some concern, but this change actually could be an opportunity for the business to correct those issues. We're looking at extending their business hours just by another hour, and in exchange, we can probably require certain conditions, which already we know that they are getting extra security person. They are going to look into getting more thorough cleaning done, and possibly maybe get a working phone line established at the business that can be answered at all operating hours. So, and another option, I don't know if there's still opportunity for the business to discuss with the neighboring business that closes at midnight, a chance to rent that space from them, especially if it's not being used by anyone else. As far as the valet parking, I think with every check of $20, it would be kind of almost useless to have a valet there because valet probably going to cost as much as their check. So, and then maybe as a commission we can look into conditionally approving it, where, and I think we've done that in the past, where the approval would be conditioned just for a short period of time, and then this item would come back to the commission, and then we can look if they did implement those safety measures and cleaning measures, and if there was a valid change, and if number of complaints went down, so then the extended hours could be more permanent if we can make it a temporary. And by temporary, I'm meaning maybe conditional, like where it comes back in front of the commission in a year or so. So that would be my thoughts on this.
Chair,
Thank you.
Vice Chair, and members of the commission, the staff recommendation before you is not for a temporary permit. The staff recommendation for you is for approval of the extended hour permit. If the commission were to approve this permit tonight, staff on the renewal basis, on the annual renewal, would review any calls for code enforcement or anything else as part of the business license renewal, and would renew the license and the business license, assuming everything went smoothly. Should there be issues at the renewal phase 1 year from now that would trigger staff having a further review with the Business License Commission, then we would bring that item back to the commission.
So is that automatically already conditioned like that, or can we make it a condition that it comes back to the commission in 12 months so we can then see if the issues are serious enough for us to revoke that extended hours?
Commissioner Yusupov, if you wish, and you can make an amendment for the business to come back before this commission to be reviewed before they renew their annual license. That's something that is doable. No? Okay, I'll defer to our Deputy City Attorney.
Good evening, Commissioners. My apologies. My voice is a little gone, but so the Commissioner is free to add a condition that there would be a check-in and the staff updates on the progress and on the compliance issues, but we would recommend against changing the resolution to a point where you make the permit conditional upon coming back and then revoking it at that time, if that distinction makes sense to you. My apologies.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Ng?
I think, to speak, Commissioner Yusupov, to what you said, I understand that that this could be a great opportunity to rectify some of these issues. It would seem, I think some of what we're seeing here is that it's a very new business. They've only been in operation for 6 months, and in that time had 5 complaints. It's a lot. What I'm seeing, or what I feel I'm seeing, is that they're new to the restaurant industry, they're a new business, and I don't think the communication flow and the business operations are as thorough as perhaps we'd like to see. I think that rather than having a condition, it would seem to make more sense to have them correct some of these things and to come back before the commission.
Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Well, I just want to start off by saying that I support our local businesses. I want our local businesses to grow. It's an opportunity for our city to gain revenue, and just for the overall economic well-being and health for our community. I am just concerned with some of the issues brought up by the public comment. I would feel more comfortable to move to approve this based on a similar aspect with what Commissioner Yusupov shared, that it come back to the commission within 6 months and we reevaluate the situation. And Mr. Kareem, if your association feels very strongly about this, you're the only one here. We're not seeing anybody but you here to speak. So, if the commission wills it to come back within 6 months, if allowed by the deputy city attorney, then I suggest you bring your people here and tell and express to the commission. But other than that, I would be in full support of moving this for approval if we are allowed to have a condition. At least that way, if we can check in, we can see how successful the business can be to remedy this. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay. I am more aligned with Commissioner Eng. I also feel that the business has been in operation for 6 months. I think there have been the complaints from the neighborhood are very recent, and it sounds like they've been trying to resolve things for a long time, and that clearly up until today, they haven't been resolved. And I think these issues are fairly serious, even though they're not West Hollywood residents. These people are West Hollywood patrons, and I think we do need to be good neighbors. I'm also concerned that I don't feel the supervision of the restaurant is where it should be. I'm concerned that they weren't aware of things like the armed guard. It seemed a little cavalier to me, the response to it. I do feel it's a little cavalier, the whole approach to cleaning up. I think it seems that there have been neighborhood meetings, perhaps just with Mr. Kareem, but I don't have a problem with a single representative showing up. I myself am often the only representative of my entire community of almost 2,000 residents as well. And sometimes it's not as easy for everybody to get on, be in person, but I think writing is an important representation of people's concerns. And I want to respect that people did take the time to write. I would, like Commissioner Eng, like to see a lot of these issues resolved before we grant extended hours. I think open till 2 o'clock at night already is a long time. I'm concerned that we don't have enough police officers, sheriffs out at the late hours when the clubs get out and they're already burdened. I think it's a fallacy that people sober up after hours. I think that's something that's come up many, many times, and people frankly don't feel that's accurate. The fact that they have no control over where people eat the pizza, that's understandable. But I do think being a good neighbor is important, and I think they need to somehow resolve it with the neighbors so that the day of the commission, they're not writing in letters. They need to be comfortable. The nearby establishments are clearly not having a similar issue, and I would just feel more comfortable waiting until the issue with Carney's is resolved. I think he's expressed that the Carney's people do not want to have anything to do with Dobrik's in terms of parking right now, so further discussions may not be fruitful, but if they are, that's great. When they come back, we can see that they have resolved things with Carney's. I also agree with Commissioner Yusperov that people are unlikely to pay a $15 or $20 valet fee to pick up $15 or $20 worth of pizza and drinks. I think that's a stretch. And there isn't that much parking on Sunset, public parking. And the municipal lot is basically a quarter of a mile or more away. So it's a long walk and it's a long schlep. And I think having 4 or 5 parking spaces for a place that gets 200 people in an evening or more isn't supportive, can't be supported properly. So personally, I would like to see things resolved before we extend an extra hour. So would anybody like to make a motion? Oh, Commissioner Yusperov.
So I think, I mean, we did get a lot of complaints in writing and email and then in person. So if we leave it as is and they operate till 2 o'clock without additional security or visible changes, I think these type of complaints may continue. So I thought that as a part of these conditions, that would be a chance for the business to improve. And if we can make it a condition that they can come back in front of the commission upon renewal, that would be a good test to see if they were able to mitigate those issues. So that was the reasoning behind my suggestion that we approve them with the condition that they come back. So at least that way they have an extra security guard who comes in as early as 7 p.m. and they have maybe additional cleaning done, and then they have additional communication with Carney's regarding renting that space and other steps that they can take now that they're going to have additional hour to operate, and allowing to make more revenue that will allow them to make those changes. So that was my reasoning behind that. I say I don't know what happens if the commission deadlocks. Can we make an motion after that? I'm assuming so. I'm not sure how that works, or if we can make that condition and then vote on that part. But I'd like to make a motion to approve it with the condition that the the applicant comes back to the commission for any potential renewal.
Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. So, Madam Deputy City Attorney, what is the legal advice you have for the Commission regarding this issue?
If I understand Commissioner Yusupov correctly, it sounds like it's a motion to approve the resolution as revised and proposed by Commissioner Yusupov for the applicant to come back for a check-in within 6 months. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And that is...
That would be the motion.
That falls within the legal parameters of what we can vote for?
Yes.
Then I will second Commissioner Yusupov's motion. I just want to reiterate, I support our small businesses. I want to see them grow. I want our small businesses to become friends with their neighbors, make improvements, and with that said, they can expand and be bigger small businesses within our lovely city. We're just getting out of a pandemic, and we have to succeed, and the only way we can succeed is if we help each other succeed. And that includes businesses helping their neighbors by not being nuisances and putting in, just being neighborly. That is my comment. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table and the second. Can we have a roll call, please, Secretary?
Commissioner Ng?
No.
Commissioner Hang?
Yes.
Commissioner Yusupov?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Eisenberg?
Nay.
So the item is not passed.
So the resolution is denied, and we'll bring back a resolution denying it for Commissioner's approval at the next
you.
hearing.
Okay, we'll move on to the next section. Section 8, unfinished business. There's none. Okay, on Section 9, new business, a presentation on the background investigation of the LA County Sheriff's Department, Major Crimes Bureau for regulatory city business licenses. Is there a staff report?
Hi, good evening. This is Jessica Benitez, Code Enforcement Supervisor for the City of West Hollywood. And with me is Investigator Hauser from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Major Crimes Bureau. Back in February 7th, the Commission asked that there be a presentation regarding the process for background checks. And so Investigator Hauser will walk us through the process.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Hauser, and I work major crimes licensing detail. We handle business licensing, and we also handle regulatory permits such as pawn shops and secondhand licensing and massage businesses or establishments. A summary of services that we provide are business licensing, and that would cover businesses such as animal grooming, fortune telling, which require a minimal background check, more like a fingerprint check, and also other law enforcement applications that we verify criminal history and such. We also do background checks, which are more in depth, and that would cover our massage establishments and our secondhand dealers and pawn shops, and those require a full background. So those are more detailed. We also do compliance checks, which means that once we approve a business, we will go out and do compliance checks, making sure that they are operating under the municipal code. And if they're not, then we will issue warnings or actual citations, which are usually misdemeanors, which could be prosecuted by the city attorney if they are continual. If we go back, Jessica, back one more. Then we'll go with the other one. So part of our duties with the Sheriff's Department is that we process applications. We get to know our business owners and employees that are out there, which basically it helps with compliance and getting people to know who we are and what we do, and making sure that they're operating within the municipal code. We conduct site visits. We have ongoing investigations going on constantly. And once we finish with a background, we do a recommendation to the city. So the city always has the ability to overrule our recommendation, because that's what it is. It's a recommendation based on the totality of what the background presents to us. So moving on, the types of licensing that we do for the city of West Hollywood. If you can see, we have animal grooming, fortune telling, gun dealers, locksmith, massage parlors, technicians, model studios, pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers, peddlers, which include food trucks, sidewalk vendors, promoters, and commercial solicitors. So within, for instance, there's a two-part for pawnbroker and secondhand license. There's a city license they have to obtain, but I also do state licensing, which is regulatory state licensing as well. So those two have to go hand in hand. When the city provides me with an application for either one of these, I send out a background packet, which is also for state secondhand, which they have to get in order, or they have to obtain it before I can issue a city license. We have to have two checks for that one. Okay, and as far as our process, when we get the background, so we have our intake, which we receive our application from the city. We then look at it. We do the minimal criminal checks that I was talking about, which would be like more like fingerprint check and the law enforcement applications. That would be for the smaller businesses, like the fortune telling and the peddling, that type of thing. For forms, we send out a supplemental background package. That one would be the bigger background. That would be for our secondhand dealers as well as our massage establishment businesses. We give them 30 days to complete. It's a pretty big packet. They return all those forms back to me. I review it all, make notes, and if necessary, we'll call the applicant in for an interview. When the process is almost complete, I'll make sure that the establishment is also up to code. I know code enforcement does it, but we usually will go out to make sure they have 40-watt lighting, and there's like a whole list of things that we look at as well. And we make them correct those things before we issue the license. And once everything's completed, we provide our recommendation for approval or denial to the city based on the municipal code usually. So I wanted to go pretty quick so we can get out of here. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Investigator Hauser, for giving us an enlightening presentation on the process. Are you sworn your position, or are you civilian with the department?
I'm a retired sergeant with the Sheriff's Department, and I came back in a different position, got bored being at home, and this position came up, so now I am in a different capacity as a civilian investigator.
Okay, that's wonderful. So typically it's a civilian investigator that's conducting these types of investigations for the applicants that apply for these types of licenses, great?
Correct.
And it's usually overseen by a sworn sergeant, et cetera, in the licensing unit?
No, the hiring process, I would say that most people that are in my position now have a law enforcement background.
Okay.
So they're usually retired and then usually came back.
That makes sense, because you
Yeah.
already have the skills to do the interviewing.
Right.
So what type of background checks are completed? Are we talking live scan with the FBI? Or are we talking Department of Justice with the state of California? And how in-depth does it go?
Those are actually kind of the same thing. Department of Justice, the applicant would go get fingerprinted, live scan fingerprinted, and those prints are basically sent to like my mailbox, which would be the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. For a secondhand dealer, there's also another live scan print they have to get done for Department of Justice. So there's 2 of those have to be done for that one. But for a minimal licensing check, for instance, like dog grooming, it's going to be the basic. I'm not going to ask for a lot of background information. It's going to just pretty much be that the city's application, I look at it and I run my criminal checks, have them fingerprinted, review everything, and then it's usually good to go.
Got it. And typically when an interview is done, is it one person? Is it the applicant? Are they allowed an attorney? And is it just one investigator? Are there multiple investigators depending on whatever type of interview it is for? Whatever license it is for? What is the process? I'm just trying to get a mental note in my head.
Most interviews, if they're conducted, are usually, I would say, if we have a language barrier, so I might need to have an interpreter, and I might have the applicant come in. Even if it's a simple background, I might still have them come in. And it wouldn't necessarily be an interview, but it'd just be to help them fill out the correct application correctly. Most of our interviews are usually done when we have a massage establishment. There's a lot of paperwork. It's really difficult to go back and forth over email or phone conversations, or if there's a language barrier. Depending on who is in the office, I have one other person at work licensing with me, and we have a couple different translators depending on language.
So it's typically just one investigator. It's the investigator and the applicant, if necessary, then a translator.
I would say usually 2. Me and my partner are usually in on all of them with a translator. Okay. We have had attorneys come in, but it's not a criminal investigation. Yeah. You know, it's not. So we usually typically don't, but it's not unheard of if somebody wants to bring in an attorney.
So I was just curious, maybe this was just a different type of situation, but you were here for a hearing back in December for a massage therapy, a massage license, and the report that you had submitted, it's October 18th, 2022, that there were 3 detectives in the room with the applicant who did not really speak English that well. And in the report, the investigators were Bakshian, Vargas, and Klatt. And then I assume that the translator was in there too. And the applicant didn't really speak English, so I'm just trying to understand why there was a need for 3 investigators. You know, perhaps that was just a different example, but that's just what came to mind because that's what was before us.
That's understandable. No, so we always have the translator in if we need it. And we always ask permission. I mean, right from the beginning, asked to record any conversation or interviews that are going on, which was fine. Clat was in there because he just got to our unit and he's a trainee. So he was in there, not so much to be heard, but as a training exercise, but it's usually Investigator Vargas and I.
Thank you. It just, from reading the report and just recalling, it would, for me, seem intimidating for a person who doesn't speak English to have 3 law enforcement officials in a room questioning. It just didn't sit right with me. But
Right.
now I understand that coming from what you're explaining, that there was a need for a third because that person was in training. So thank you for answering my question.
And also, unfortunately, when the tape recording goes off, when we're complete, you don't see that when they're leaving and they're thanking us or laughing or any of that. So unfortunately, you cannot see that afterwards. So I know that they said that I was a little hostile, but I wasn't. And, we were fine when we left.
And I just wanted to say thank you for your service. You work for the Sheriff's Department, retired, so I do appreciate you protecting our community, and thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Ray?
Yeah, it's good to see you. And in fact, I'm glad that Commissioner Hang mentioned the December meeting because I really had wanted to both ask and point a few things out. We did go against your recommendation, and at that time I was sorry that I didn't have the opportunity to say that it was not anything against what you in particular were referring, and I wanted to thank you for all of the work that you put in. Something, I guess, there's a two-part thing here. I'm curious how many other cities you work with?
I do business licensing for mostly, and my partner, in all of LA County, and we also do all of the licensing in the unincorporated area of LA County. So all the business licensing, it's Title VII, we do all of it, me and my partner.
So I guess within that, I'm curious, so West Hollywood, I know I'm going to botch this, I don't know if it's not decriminalized, but both sex work and psilocybin are not decriminalized. They're low level, they're just not pursued? I don't know, what is the technical term for that when it's not exactly decriminalized, but we just don't make it a priority to? Yes, Director Rivas is going to explain that for me.
Which is a good question. What the city has done is by resolution proclaimed that these be low level and low priority crimes or instances. However, it doesn't preclude our law enforcement partners, obviously, from addressing these concerns, but it is considered a low priority in the city.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I wanted to make mention of, or that I was kind of sorry that nobody was able to mention. It seemed that or at least the applicant seemed to be indicating that there was no sex work going on. They seemed to be or the woman was very adamant or seemed a bit concerned about that. But what I really wanted to state, or what I was sorry I didn't state, was that we don't criminalize sex work here in West Hollywood. So I guess I'm curious if those sort of parameters have been explained to you and if you incorporate that into your findings.
That's a little bit of a confusing question. Can you break it down? I don't know exactly what you're asking me.
Yeah, so you made the recommendation not to approve that license, and at least with the applicant, it seemed to be that she thought that your recommendation not to approve was based on the indication of sex work.
Okay.
Yes, and so I just was wondering if you knew that we don't criminalize sex work or psilocybin, and if that might be if that might not be something moving forward that would make a difference in your recommendations.
Hi, Commissioner Eng. If I may, I respond to that. Investigator Hauser goes by different, actually, that criteria that she uses is what is outlined in our municipal code, section 5.08.080, grants for denial of business license. So she does her investigative work, and then she forwards it over to us for recommendation. And I think Director Rivas wants to add something.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think instead of maybe framing it where the city is not trying to criminalize that activity, obviously that was the intent of proclaiming because of the sex work and human trafficking and other things that go into that, right, so that are very serious. But the fact of the matter, though, is that our law enforcement agencies can still address that type of issue if it is something that they investigate and that they receive reports on. So the resolution does not preclude them from enforcing laws related to massage establishments or any sort of related activities that sometimes occur. But for the investigator, they're taking a non-biased approach in their investigation, and to Jessica's point, really looking at the criteria that's set in the West Hollywood Municipal Code and kind of following those set guidelines to make their recommendations without, again, taking into account how maybe a contract city or even in an incorporated area, maybe in a certain district within LA County under a different supervisor. And so there may be different interpretations or perspectives, right, that are provided in that district, but nonetheless, the investigator is going to keep their findings and their work non-biased in that regard.
I did not look at that applicant as running a sex business. My denial was purely based on the multitude of paperwork that I came in that was changed every time and during the interview, false statements. So.
Thank you. Just very quick question. The background check, is that just a quick run for the computer database nationwide just to see if there are any criminal offenses, or is that something different?
For a simple one. So we used to do taxi cab drivers. We would do a background check for wants and warrants, basically in a live scan fingerprint. And that's just very quick. It's very great to have live scan fingerprinting because later on we get subsequent arrests, our department does. And so if I was doing taxi cabs here in the city, I could tell the city, hey, I need to revoke this license because this guy picked up a DUI. And my job is to protect the city from liability. So when I do my backgrounds, that's what I'm doing, is I'm making sure there's no issues that are going to pop up later on for the city.
Okay. And then there are more extensive ones depending on
Yeah, the massage and the secondhand and pawn dealers.
What about gun dealers?
Oh, those are more involved also.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your work.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Hain?
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
I just have one question. You mentioned that you and your partner look at the business licenses for all of LA County incorporated and unincorporated. Are you the only team or are there other teams?
We're the only two now. We unfortunately lost one of our partners to COVID last year, so we're down a couple. But we have another one coming in soon, and then hopefully we'll pick up one more. So we were a team of 4, but we're down to 2.
For all of LA County?
All of our contract cities, yes.
Just out of curiosity, how many reviews do you go through in a typical month?
We get in, oh my gosh, probably close to 1,000 applications. And out of those, I mean, some of them are extensive. So it's a lot of paperwork.
Are they all in person?
No. The simple ones are good, which I can she sends me an application and I can complete it and then send back my recommendation. But then we have the big ones where I have packets that are like this big for one massage business.
You should ask for more help.
Yeah, we're trying.
Just to Director Rivas, just a quick question. How do our priorities in terms of sex work persecution compared to the city of LA? How do they feel about them?
I don't know. I have not looked into kind of the stance. I know there's been some turnover as well in the city council for LA City, so I wouldn't be able to kind of speak to that. But I can tell you just in the time that I've been here, a little over 4 years, we operate 100% on report complaints. And, we take a different approach than other communities in terms of providing outreach services to folks too that may be involved with sex work. But 100% the times that we're out there and that we partner with other agencies when we are doing inspections, again, which is extremely rare, but when it does happen, it's because folks are bringing those things to our attention. And so, we obviously take those very serious because, there are human trafficking and other elements that we certainly want to get assistance and provide services to folks for. So.
We're more lenient, in other words, and we just pursue things based on complaints rather than being activists.
That's very true. I mean, we do perform annual inspections with different businesses, but I know we kind of paused on that just during COVID. A lot of businesses were closed during that period of time. We plan on scheduling to do those again, but that's, again, just really focused on the operating requirements. We have a pretty robust, like most cities, as it relates to massage establishments. And so staff will go in there, but again, they're going with other folks as well, when they're involved doing their inspections. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you as well. Okay, do we need, there's no motion for this. Okay, so should we close this issue? Okay. Item number 10, items from staff.
Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the Business License Commission. I have 2 items for the Commission, just as quick updates. As you know, the WeHo Extended Hour Business License application will return to your meeting on June 6th, so staff will be back before you at that meeting with that application. And number 2, the City of West Hollywood is celebrating Senior Month with activities throughout the month of May. We sent you via email kind of all the activities. More information is on the city's website, and lots of activities there for seniors to participate, for everyone to really participate and celebrate this month. So those are the 2 items.
Old people.
Pardon me?
We have a lot of seniors.
Yes. So those are the 2 items that we have for you for updates from me for this evening.
If I can just add to, and I know Vito and I had connected to provide some updates, but I also want to make mention, as he had just gave you kind of the look-ahead schedule for June 6th, I believe, is the next Business License Commission meeting. So prior to that, and actually that weekend just before, is West Hollywood Pride. And so I wanted to make mention of that to the Business License Commission, that West Hollywood is definitely in full force of the activities and the activations. We're super excited, working from public safety to our great event services team as well, and the production staff that are involved with all of that. So that will begin on that Friday on June 2nd, and then June 3rd, and then we'll have our June 4th West Hollywood Pride Parade. So, and then we'll see you that following Tuesday. So hopefully everybody will get some rest on Monday after and that weekend, and then we'll be back at it on the 6th.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, do we have item number 11, public comment? Do we have any speakers at this time?
There are no public speakers at this time.
Okay. Any items from commissioners? Item number 12. Commissioner Rang?
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to make mention that Delaware, in late April, passed cannabis legalization. So it makes the 22nd state to allow adult use cannabis, and Minnesota looks to be next. That means the total of 38 states now that allow either medicinal or adult use. And then last month, I asked staff about the smoking lounges and discovered that we have the capability to have 16 establishments that will allow public smoking. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm a cannabis advocate, but I even think that 16 is a lot for such a small city, especially a city that doesn't actually allow people to smoke cigarettes in their own residence if it's multi-use. So again, I want to call on the city to implement training that, or required training along the lines of ServSafe, which the restaurant industry requires. There are several that would teach cannabis safe consumption, and I think that that would be a good idea to have that be a requirement of our city if we're going to have cannabis smoking in 16 public places. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Hang?
Thank you, Vice Chair. You led a steady ship tonight, so thank you. I just wanted to thank staff for helping to steer this commission in the right direction. I know sometimes, I'm speaking for myself, I can sound deleterious and maybe veer off course, but I want to thank staff for guiding me back onto the right track. I want to say happy Senior Month, happy AAPI Month for the Asian Pacific, AAPI, including myself. And this was a good meeting, and I just want to thank staff for all of your hard work and everything. That's my comment.
Mr. Yusuf?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff again for your hard work and then for staying late at work. We always appreciate that and your guidance, yes, when we have questions. And I also thank all my fellow commissioners for great work, and I think we had a very good meeting. Thank you.
Okay, I'd also like to thank Commissioner Rivas and the directors for keeping us in line, especially myself, because I know I can go off on tangents. Good job tonight to everyone. I would also like to welcome one of our public speakers, future Commissioner Cochran, who will be joining us hopefully at the next meeting. And we look forward to having him on our board. Thank you. Oh, sorry, it's me. Okay, it's time to adjourn. Does anyone have any adjournment motions? Okay. Call the meeting closed.
Second.
Thank you. Usually an adjournment is the name of somebody who might have done it.